performance in CTV is headed our way, which is really revolutionary when you think about where linear TV was when we were kids, right? It was very hard to tie back if somebody was selling more yogurt or whatever. The consultative approach always matters. And if you're listening to what people are saying about how you can leverage the advantages of digital and the power of linear and TV, that performance element really starts to come our way. Those B2B discussions and how your business works, which is that consultative approach and understanding it. And then now having tools and the ability in digital television and CTV to be able to not only have the attention, but then also make it performant in media and in digital media. I think that's a huge one coming right now for us, for all of us.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the OnBase podcast. I'm your host, Chris Moody, and today I'm very excited to be joined by John Rogers to talk about mastering sales execution, how Roku drives growth in programmatic advertising. John, thanks for joining us today and welcome to the show.
Hey Chris, thanks for having me.
Sweet. Well, I'm really excited you're here. We talked before I hit record about how many Roku devices I've set up over the years, how many are in our home currently. So big fan, even have the little baby teether toy for our 2-year-old, which she loves carrying that remote around. And I've seen the growth firsthand. So I know you've been in the middle of it, but with massive growth, I'd love to understand about your career and what experiences prepared you for leading a sales team through that significant strategy shift and high growth phase.
Sure. So, I'm a Baltimore ad tech person. If there's a certain flavor of ad tech people that you meet out in the world, so my lineage over 20 years ago is advertising.com is where I started, and I oversaw they called it media buying at the time, and then it moved to what they called publisher services. But even right out of the gate, what we did was create a sales approach to buying, a client centric first approach to buying ad inventory even 20 years ago, where we saw a ton of benefit from, even though we were cutting people's checks, we needed, paying them, we needed to earn their business. That was right out of the gate at ad.com. And then I moved to Videology, which was another Baltimore-based company. I rode that whole ride, Videology, from 2008 to 18. We were winning for quite a while and then ultimately filed for bankruptcy, got picked up by Amobi, where I worked for a couple of years, and then the unruly now Nexon SSP. So I've always been on the supply side of the business. And then hopping over here to Roku just about 8 months ago, when you talk about the center of it, for me, starting here at Roku, it's been capitalizing on the tailwinds that have been created in this business and then really building it out. And we can talk about, I'm sure, sort of the things that you need to do to execute in ad tech. It's just kind of where we are right now. But that's been kind of my journey. And then also hopping over to Roku, it's been really about building a stronger foundation of programmatic business here, which has been exciting for sure.
And that's been a big change for Roku too, adding programmatic. I'm curious, for marketing, we talk about this a lot, how the old playbook doesn't work anymore. But from the sales side, what was the moment that you realized that the old sales playbook wouldn't work and that you had a new reality you had to embrace?
Yeah, here at Roku, I'm in sales, so we want people to access and buy our inventory. And we're certainly focused on incremental demand, people that bring us new and interesting demand. But we're in this interesting spot where people want to work with us also. So the sales playbook of sort of find people, pitch, client, close deal is interesting, but we do have a level of qualification here around the quality of people that we work with. And that part of the playbook is super important. It actually behaves as much like when I was at a DSP, when I ran the supply team at the Amobi DSP, where people want to work with you and you have to be really sure about how you work with them and then how they fit into your overall strategy. So there is a level of business development that's critical to where I am in our business to make sure that we're working with quality partners and then we're showing our value and then hopefully closing those deals. So there's a layer of we don't necessarily want to work with everybody. And that is important to get in place before we get moving. That's new, right? That's not sort of your traditional kind of, cold call. Like at least my first job out of college, right? It was cold call, get business card. That's how old I am. Get business card, find person, cold call, pitch, close deal. There's a lot of layers in this. It's a complex business.
I love multiple things you said there. The business card example, one of my jobs came from a business card. I had a great business card. It was recycled cardboard and stamped, and they were looking at doing new business cards. And I was at a little lunch and learn type thing and dropped off a book about business cards with my business card, and I'd applied for the job. And that led, dating myself a little bit there, but
Love that. Love it.
that
I love
part
the
was cool.
creativity to that. That's always, those stories are so great. That's a good one, Chris. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. And the Baltimore example, I'm a huge Orioles fan. My dad has been an Orioles fan since
Oh,
birth. I actually have a Jackson Holiday rookie card back there on the shelf that's blurred out. And you talked about the Baltimore flavor of what type of ad professional you are and seller. I'm curious, over time,
huh.
how has your philosophy on what great sales leadership looks like changed?
Hmm. In ad tech, because data is so available, you can hold people accountable. People, first of all, you have the ability to manage your business on a daily basis. You're able to see, how am I doing? This isn't about closing a deal and then 6 months later seeing how much revenue comes in. This is as much about steering the business real time. So what I've learned, and the way that we're approaching the business even here at Roku, is that there's a daily rigor to the business. And I think that's a function of ad tech. That's certainly the way the ad.com business was managed, that I think I've tried to carry, that I have carried through my career in ad tech. And that daily rigor allows you to, it's not a normal sort of feedback loop, again, like where you close a deal and then you just see how the billing comes in. Like, you can do a new deal with a new partner or with a partner, and within a week or so, you can get a feel for like how things are going. And you certainly have a right to get back on the phone with them to say, here's what we're seeing. And because you can see it real time, and because you're provide a level of intensity to the business, which is what we're doing here now, that's how you win. I'm pretty sure that I would die on that hill for in ad tech, is that daily intensity. We manage our business here now daily. The meeting I have right after this, we call it the war room, which is a meeting of all of our stakeholders to track numbers, see how our deals are performing. But because the feedback loop is so tight, that gives you the opportunity to manage the business a lot more closely, and I think a lot more effectively.
Love the daily rigor. I have a question
Yeah.
about that too. So, data is extremely important. You hit on all the data availability, how that helps to manage on a daily basis,
Yeah.
literally. And we see that a ton too. I mean, marketers have talked for years about how there's no perfect attribution. We know that data is
Yeah.
not always perfect. So when you don't have all the answers and you're trying to make daily decisions, how do you empower your reps to make smart, confident decisions when they may not have all the answers?
Yeah, that's part of it. I think you have to tune up their instincts. I think that's the most important thing. So you could trace that all the way back into hiring even. Like, it's a certain type of person that's going to be comfortable in that kind of like gray area. Like, hey, how are you going to feel if we have to make a decision and we don't have all the data, right? Like, there's an interview process, or like through the interview process, hopefully you can find those right kind of people. That is kind of the first thing. And then when you have that experience and those instincts, I do think there's an element in programmatic sales in particular, where as a manager, it's important to make people comfortable in making mistakes. Like, it's okay if your intention is good and all the data that you did have led you in this direction. It's important for them to know that it's all right to take a step forward when you're not exactly sure where you're going to land. As a manager, it's important for me to support people who are true in those. If it's a wild decision into the gray area, it's harder to support that. As much data as you have with your instincts and your professionalism and with the right thing for the client, which is obviously critical too, it's okay to make a mistake. And I do feel like that's, as a leader, it's important for people to know that and empower them to do their best and hire good people so that their best is probably good enough. That's part of it too, right?
I love that. I mean, taking that risk is so important, but you do have to feel safe enough to do that. So that's important. And,
So
you
I
know,
think Roku's a big company. I wasn't sure even when I came here how set it was in a process, right? Like, this is the biggest company I've worked at since AOL bought ad.com a long time ago. And it's been refreshing here that there is still that like entrepreneurial sort of spirit. Like, it's okay to take a step into this. We're building this together. There's still, CTV is growing so fast and is so dynamic that we're always kind of in the gray area. We should be. If we weren't, I would say we're probably going to lose. Like, we want to make sure that we're pushing it a little bit in a way that's developing new business, talking to new partners, all that kind of stuff. So it's been refreshing to work at Roku with that in mind, and then empowering to know that the tailwinds of the business are also behind you. So it's been a good combo that way, but that is nice. It's not a huge, gambles are there's a lot of upside to those gambles, I would say, or at least they're risk taking, right? Not gambles, probably not the right word.
Yeah, well, that sounds really healthy to me. I'm
Love it.
curious about the balance of the huge aggressive goals. Many would call them BHAGs, right? Like the big,
Mhm.
hairy, audacious goal. You know, as you have the massive goals, and then you are talking about daily meetings, which you're walking into one next about
Yeah.
daily metrics and what you need to do. How do you strike that balance at Roku of the huge, monstrous goal you're trying to achieve and what you manage daily?
Yeah, one of the things that I really focus on is like account segmentation, right? So it's pretty tactical, but it's also really important to know which accounts are your the horses that you're going to ride, right? Like what I would call here, and anybody who's been on my teams who might see this will know, it's sort of your engine room clients, which we talk about a lot. Like people that are going to run, and what does it take to make them run? And that's important because to add new business on top of business that you're losing is just, you're on a treadmill, right? So you have to keep that engine room running. And then you have to also then find new opportunities to build on top of your engine room clients. And those, or whatever people call them, rising stars, whatever you want to call them. But the ceiling needs to be higher for a lot of those folks too. So when you have a big goal, the first thing in ours, because we're like sort of hunting and farming in my team, you have to know the types of accounts you have, and you have to be an expert in those accounts. And that's where that daily rigor really helps. And then once you're an expert in your own account, maybe you can find, hopefully, and it's my job to help you find accounts that behave like those accounts. Like, what are the 5 other accounts that do this, right? Are there any other ones, or are those gone? Or is this person a unicorn and there aren't any others like that? Like, you've got to be realistic about all that. And then once you kind of understand your market and your account base, a strategy sort of flows out of that, because then you can start to look at things through a certain lens where you're like, okay, these are the things I have to do every day, but then here's what I need to do to grow. And it starts to create an effective way to approach yourself.
That's great. One thing I am always very interested in, one of my favorite books, it's Wonder Hell by Laura Gassner Otting. And
Mm.
I think a lot of high performers aren't always the best at recognizing and celebrating wins or
Mm.
success. It's always on to the next one, which can
Interesting.
be a positive, but I
Yeah.
think there's also a time to make sure that you are recognizing your success and your achievements. I'd love to hear your strategy for recognizing success without letting the team lose hunger for the next milestone.
Yeah, I think there's obviously a bunch of different ways. That's a good one. I don't know that book, by the way. That might be one worth digging into, right?
Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah. Okay. But recognizing people's success in sales can happen on a daily basis. And I do think that opportunity of sort of that daily rigor to even just the slack of like, hey, that deal looks great, way to go. Or recognizing it in a micro level on a day-to-day basis or in your one-on-one, like those types of things. Like I have somebody who's new on my team right now, and he's doing great with the tone and what he's working on. And some of that is just making sure that I recognize that. And it's easy because it's great work. So it's like, okay, your tone with your clients is perfect, and here's what's going to yield for you, right? Like, let's focus on this next. And he just has that. So almost back to account stuff, like that positive feedback is kind of the engine room. It's important for them to get out of bed and feel like people are being productive and their work is appreciated. And then, there's quarterly goals, annual goals, recognizing those types of things, which are a little bigger. The good thing here is that the senior folks here certainly recognize that as well. And we get a lot of those kind of shout outs too. There's, I mean, obviously like money or party, like those kind of things flow out of the business. But I do think the day to day of it and making people know or helping them realize that their work is appreciated and good helps a lot. And I know everybody needs that, whether people are just sort of like, hey, just cut me just make sure my commission check comes on time. I mean, that's one way to play it. But it's important as a manager to make sure that people know that they're doing the right things and that their work is important to the business. That's the other part that I really try to work on which again isn't hard when you set up the structure the right way, is to make sure that people know their work matters, right? Like that is important. You're impacting the business, and here's how you're impacting the business. And I need that too. So I'm always kind of working to understand that for myself. And it's important for my teams to know the same thing. That's actually a biggie.
Yeah, I love that. And you've hit on the daily rigor a couple of times. So I'm curious, tech is never immune to huge strategy changes. And
Mm.
sometimes that dramatically impacts on the ground execution and what we do on a daily basis. So what has been the biggest challenge and translating Roku's programmatic vision into the daily sales activity?
So I joke about this all the time. Like bumping off the guardrails is generally okay, right? Like there's a lane that programmatic sales sort of lives in here. And there's certainly things in that lane that I'm very comfortable managing. And we're continually empowered to look for new tranches of revenue. And I do think the biggest thing, especially in big strategy changes or strategy evolutions, our biggest piece is making sure that we are driving revenue, but then also complementing, or at least staying out of the way of, our direct sales organization, which is critical because their business is different than ours and they're selling directly to brands and agencies and providing tons of value in their businesses. And sometimes programmatic channels can bump into them in ways that aren't as productive. So in my role, what I've found is no matter what, that's always going to be part of our strategy, and being supportive and collaborative, and our team to have that type of person that's supportive and collaborative. You can always take advantage of the tailwinds, whether it's through channel sales or direct sales. Like we're always the team element matters a lot. So as you have big switches in the maybe how you execute or what the strategy is, the goal is still going to be driving incremental revenues for the business. If that changed for some reason, then maybe this isn't the right place for you. But in that scenario, a collaboration, consultation, and support helps a lot. And then it also shows, where your lanes are, and then you're able to kind of help other people hit their lanes too. Like it helps. The swings are less big when you're all in it together, especially in a big company.
Consultation and support. I like that.
How about that? That's a good one.
Yeah, that could make a t-shirt there.
That'll be our book. That's going to be our book that we're going to write.
There you go. Boom. I'm in. Sold. I'm easy to sell to. There you go. For other sales leaders at high growth organizations, so let's think growing very quickly, what is the single most important change that they need to make in their management style to be successful?
So I do think, my personal opinion, so this would be sort of my approach, and if you want to think about it in hiring, I think culture fit is as important as performance. That's a hot take. There's a hot take. Somebody who fits into the broader organization, obviously with sales skills, you have to interview for that. But it's really important to know what your company culture is. And it's really important to know if this person is going to fit into it and create more tailwinds, or if they're going to be working against it. And I think that especially in sales, right? Like there's always an instinct of like, this guy's Rolodex is, waist deep and he's going to know everybody and it's going to be great. But then, and it's always like, yeah, but he's kind of a jerk or something like that, right? Like that jerk part will haunt you, is what I would say to other sales leaders. And somebody who may not have the depth of the Rolodex, but has the skill set to build their own Rolodex, has a decent sized Rolodex, they can leverage my Rolodex if I trust them. Like, there's ways to work through that. And I will say, don't forget culture fit. If there were other leaders that were watching this, and I, just from personal experience too, there's more productive work happening with people who understand the business, want to understand the business, and want to be a part of the team. I mean, listen, if you're just somebody who's, kind of a jerk, who's a salesperson who doesn't want to work as part of a team, at least on how we're doing it, then, maybe real estate's better for you. It's a single, you know what I mean? Like there's a place that you can just do how you want to do it. But here we have an ecosystem. We're in the thick of it, and we're in the thick of it in the market, and we're in the thick of it in our organization. And there's a certain element to it. And that's the teams that I manage, or the teams that I manage are also good teammates. And I do think that makes us more productive.
Yeah, that's perfect. I love that one too. I'm big on culture fit. I said on the last podcast episode we did too, that my biggest realization in my career was just being my entire self at work, not trying to be an executive at the company I was at, just being myself. Because if it's not a fit, it's better to know than go try to be something you're not. So the answer to this next question could be culture fit, honestly, but hopefully it's not.
In addition to culture fit, sorry, I was going to say, the two things to interview for, in my opinion, are especially in ad tech, curiosity and culture fit. If somebody's at the end of the interview, and I've had interviews where I've started with people where I've asked them, like, so what questions are on your mind? And it's not a trick. I just am curious if they're curious. And the conversation then sort of goes in a whole other direction, which is great if you show that they're, or if they show that they're curious about how the business works. They're the two qualities for me. If they're going to fit in with how our team operates and how the org operates, and if they want to know how the business works, and if, that kind of stuff, that's curiosity and culture fit. Performance, obviously, but that's table stakes, I think.
Yeah, curiosity is a huge. I love doing that in interviews too. A lot of times I'll be the wild card in a panel. So when it
Yeah.
gets to me, then I come in and say, "Hey, I am here to answer any question you want. So
Right.
you just throw it at me. I'm going to give you an honest answer. I'd rather
Yeah.
you know that you're excited about this and just
Big
see
time.
what happens because to your point, sometimes they'll fizzle very quickly and then other
Yeah.
times I may not get asked one or two questions, right? If they have a ton of questions, that will drive the conversation.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm curious about dealing with ambiguity. So,
Mm,
when you have reps that may not be totally comfortable with the unknown, how
right.
do you help them see it as an opportunity rather than a risk?
Yeah, that's a good ambiguity, especially I would say in ad tech and here as well. Even though again, like Roku's a big company, but we're moving quickly, and not all the questions are answered when we're developing our strategy. So that is super important. I mean, the ways to create more black and white out of the gray is data driven and those kinds of things. So let's assume that we've exhausted all of our data options, which is definitely possible. That empowerment element I think matters a lot, that you can positively reinforce people who take risks, or at least educated risks, I would say. And I think a lot of it is a type of person that you need to make sure is on the team, that they're comfortable saying like, okay, here's what we're going to do and here's why. Here are the things that I'm worried about, but let's see how we can do it. And as a manager, I think it's your job to not only empower them, but to support them. And then a lot of times when people feel supported, that gray area is only gray for a time or two in different situations. And then they sort of have a level of confidence about, okay, here's a situation. It's kind of like this other one. Here's what I'm thinking. And sometimes that's around partner evaluation. Sometimes that's around just sort of deal type or contract things. And then sometimes it's around broader strategy. I love when people feel empowered and confident enough to come with like a big idea, a big swing where that we can work on together too. But all that grows out of the gray area. If they feel like everything in the business is black and white, then they're not empowered to say like, hey, I've been thinking about this. And, what if we did that? Because it's, my expression here and kind of everywhere is just like, this isn't IBM, right? This isn't IBM in the 80s, right? Like it's not, sort of set and you just show up and do your job. Like it's required for you to be able to be curious and then execute in that gray area. And then once people feel that, they start to develop their own sort of black and white within that, right? Which is good.
This is embracing the gray area again. Looking at the ad tech landscape, what do you think is the next big shift that sales teams should be prepared for to stay ahead of the curve?
So I think, and we just talked about this in one of our, we did an offsite or a big sort of client meeting yesterday around performance. I think performance in CTV is headed our way. I think which is really revolutionary when you think about where linear TV was when we were kids, right? Like there was no way it was very hard to tie back if somebody was selling more yogurt or whatever. And the consultative approach always matters. And if you're listening to what people are saying about how you can leverage the advantages of digital and the power of linear and TV, that performance element really starts to come our way. Those B2B discussions and how your business works, which is that consultative approach and understanding it. And then now having tools and the ability in digital television and CTV to be able to not only have the attention, but then also make it performant in media and in digital media. I think that's a huge one coming right now for us, for all of us. I do think the basics are still the same: consultative approach, good listening, developing solutions to solve people's problems. But I think we're able to solve new problems soon enough.
I mean, I do have Roku devices in
Hmm.
my home, and there are plenty of commercials and ads now that say send to phone, right? I mean, there's
Oh yeah.
literally a way to hook it to, did we get this first conversion or did people scan this QR code? So I do think that's a massive difference in addition to all the metrics that you can capture on your end.
Well, yeah, at our summit yesterday, we had one panel was with Best Buy and Amazon, right? Like here's somebody that has things to sell, and then here's somebody that has a platform to sell it, and their DSP, enables all of that. And then we're obviously the publisher and platform to be able to execute with them as well. And then we have our own too. Like there's just that's coming. Like, it used to be addressability. It used to just be like, if you and I are in different demos, that we could be watching the same show and see different ads based on sort of our demographics or ad targeting and that kind of stuff. But now it's moving to the next level around performance, which is super exciting.
I'd love to hear your favorite example, John, of
Sure.
the journey at Roku and an example where you've seen a team successfully navigate a new or uncertain business situation and what the key takeaways were for the organization.
I mean, our team's job, so I sit in the business development org. Part of our team's role is really to continue to push into the new, understanding the market and pushing into new arenas. For my team and specific client examples, we're always trying to push new opportunities to engage with our direct sales force, and there's always partnership opportunities there. So specifically, I guess the macro theme is, a success without ego kind of thing, where we've enabled our direct sales team to sell more through our partners. And that has proven to sort of rising tide lifts all boats, which is, I guess, another expression. Our sort of the new element for our team, not that they haven't been, but we're always focused on partnership and enablement across all of our internal clients and internal partners, and then pushing really to consult and understand with our platform partners. And that's really kind of created a new levels of tailwinds where there's pockets of inventory between, say, our programmatic sales group and our direct sales group, where we can partner on things to increase. And we've seen that, we've seen revenues sort of pop through indie agency partners as well as kind of direct brands too. So that's been a new approach, worried a little less about the execution and more about the partnership pieces of it.
Yeah. Well, we're coming close to time for you to join your war room, which you've talked about.
True.
So I have a few quick hitters that I like to ask. The first, and this is the toughest part about this, is only picking one thing, I think. But what is the single biggest challenge in B2B sales today?
I will say the narrative and storytelling. I think it's a complex environment. I think B2B in general, just working in our space, a lot of our solutions are complex, and there's certainly mechanics and those types of things. But as a salesperson, I need to know what I'm good at. I need to know how I can solve my clients' problems. I need to develop the opportunity so that what I'm good at solves their problem. And it's not that easy of like, oh, I need to do this. And oh, good, I can do that. And then you just off you go. So the complexity of our problems and the complexity of our businesses creates a challenge in the consultative sale element, right? So your skills have to be super refined on like your listening skills and your presentation skills, because you have to make sure that pitch is coming in so fast, you need to be able to hit it. And it's a complex environment to do that. That's the biggest challenge to me.
Awesome. I love that one. I think embracing some of the storytelling elements has honestly been one of the key factors for job retention for me.
Yeah. And the interesting thing about that is like, that's not that different than when I came out of college and was in a sales role. Like, it's still about that. I think it's harder now. It's more, everything's more refined, and ad tech in particular is so complex. And then being a big player and making sure that our interests are important here at Roku too. So making sure that you find all the spots where it can be a win-win for everybody. It's complex. It's hard. That's the hard part.
All right. What about your favorite tools or technology? What are some of the standouts for you?
So I've really enjoyed, so a lot of what I do on like sort of strategy development and these in mid-market DSP and SSP pieces, I've leaned into some AI tech, which has super helped me refine some of my ideas and develop some proposals. We do document things here. We're a Confluence shop at Roku, and that was new to me. Developing my ideas, some of them in AI tools, has been super helpful, and also helps me scale a little faster, makes things a little easier, and some data and tracking and those types of things too. So that's really been a biggie for me here. And then I will say, like, just that the upside of documenting a lot of stuff for me is like I have to get better at it, and I am, but it's focused on it. But you are able to, and this has been great here at this culture too, understand what other people are doing, because everybody's publishing their approach or strategies on different things, and that's been super helpful too. So those tools in particular help in a big company. Like when AOL bought us at ad.com or anything like that, it was just sort of like, you just came in and were super focused. But now I do feel like I understand the business better because of some of these tools, for sure.
It's a great example. Yeah, I love that a lot. What about good reads? And I'm really generous with this one. It could be book, blog, newsletter, podcast, any type of format, video, YouTube, whatever. What are some of your favorite sources of content?
I I'm a podcast listener. Because I live in Baltimore and I'm in New York all the time, I am on Amtrak fair amount, which gives me podcast availability. So I do listen to a lot of the industry podcasts for sure. Business book, which I think is over 20 years old now. It's probably closer to 25. Good to Great is one that has always sort of come back around. Some of that, like that engine room piece. And then also, I forget, they call it like Hedgehog or something that, like continue to do what you're good at. Get the right people on the bus, which we've talked about, culture fit. Like those are all things that I still, and then, creating flywheels and understanding sort of when you're in it or how much work needs to be done. I don't know if that's dated. It's probably not dated, is it? Good to great. That's still a
No,
good one, right?
I saw him speak, Jim Collins.
Yeah, Jim Collins. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, it was probably, I mean, man, time flies, probably 8 or 9 years ago, but he
Mm.
had a new book, which was building on the same concepts. It comes up all the time. I don't think that one will ever go away.
I'm a fan. And you do sort of come back to when it's good, you sort of reference it, right? And I do find myself in those types of scenarios, just like we've talked about through here. Actually, you could probably draw some lines to it, but I'll give that one my book, my read. I even listen to books. So, my wife's really plugged in on good sort of stories to listen to. So I'm always sort of doing yard work or riding the train, listening to those. But business book, I'll go with Good to Great. That's a good one.
Awesome. What about people? Are there any folks that inspire you with the content they create or how they approach anything in the industry?
Yeah, the good one. This is meta for us being on a podcast and talk about another podcaster. But I will say I admire the great ad tech gods' work in not just in the entertainment or the interest in the industry, but from the business that he built. I respect the game when people start with, a seed of an idea and then build something that's kind of cool. And then, of course, because it's kind of fun, this ad tech god thing. But I would give the shout out to him. And the reason, though, is because he's built a culture of positivity within our industry. It's pretty snarky. Ad tech can be snarky. People tend to have things to say that may not be sometimes the most positive thing. And he's a positive person. He's a positive deity, I guess I should say, in our space. And I'm a fan of what he's built. So for people that are looking for other things to listen to, or read or whatever, not only Good to Great, but that is a good podcast to understand people's journeys. And he got bought by Marketecture, which is like this interesting emerging media element in ad tech too. And I think it was a COVID meme account, right? Isn't that how ad tech got started? And then it became the podcast. That's pretty good. You know what I mean? And I've been on Slack. There's a Slack channel and I've had the opportunity to Slack ATG. And anytime I want him to know that I respect what he's built as much as what he's doing, but what's been built. And that's very cool. So I will say that. That's a good one.
Awesome. I think that's the first deity that's been recommended in our good people. So that's
I'm a
awesome.
fan. Yeah, right. Big fan. That's a good one. Yeah.
Cool. I might need to change my wording. Good people or deities to follow.
Deity,
Maybe
right.
I'll change that for the next episode.
Yeah, or meme account. I don't know. There's another way to call. I mean, listen, it's 2025. There's all kinds of crazy things going all over there.
Yeah, and money can be found anywhere, right? Like riches and niches. I think that's what they say.
I love it. I agree. Like I said, this is probably the ad.com in me because we worked with a lot of companies who were very scrappy in the early days of internet advertising. And I do love that. I love the hustle. I love the creativity. That's just where the joy is in this business for me, is doing it myself, being personally energetic and creative. And I like that. But I love seeing other people do it, and especially something cool like that. That's a trip to me. I love it.
Absolutely. We are right on schedule. One more question. Most important one. How can everyone get in touch with you after this episode?
Yeah, I guess probably LinkedIn, John Rogers, no D. I do like to be in touch with folks too, and the network is important to me. So if people do see this or want to reach out or have ideas or want to have a debate, I'll be at CES. I'm in market all the time. So yeah, probably LinkedIn. That's the easiest place these days, and I'm on there from time to time. And it is good to talk with folks. It's certainly good to talk with folks for sure. So I appreciate that.
Outstanding. Well, you crushed it today. Really appreciative of your time. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. I appreciate it. It's a great time.